And we've come to various stops along the way that have told us that the first stop was Sukkot. That means that we are embraced, we are surrounded and covered by our Elohim. And we've gone through the mist of the sea that tells us that He is holding our hand. Literally, what the words in Hebrew says, that He holds our hand in the midst of our troubles. So we see that we're not God. We're surrounded by Him. He's holding our hands in our troubles. We've also found that we come to a place where we find our rest in Him. We find our blessings in Him. We find that it is His Word and restoration that washes us clean from our worries. It washes us clean from our transgression. These are all based on what these stops that you read mean. But now we come to a point, we've gone through a point where we are molded like clay into a vessel, that we are dried and that we are filled. But now we come to a point that it says, graves of lust. What does that mean? What happened, is anybody familiar what happened with the Israelite people at this place? Kibroth, it's a long word, Hata'ava. They had just met up with Chabal. We have Jobab over here, but over there it's Chabal, who was Jethro's son. And Moses says, stay with us. And this is in Numbers 10:30 something. But stay with us. And he says, no, I'm going to go back to my own country and all this. He says, no, stay with us. It'll be good for you. We'll treat you right. And right after that, Elohim sends a fire, and it burns the uppermost part of the camp. And Moses goes before Elohim and says, forgive their complaining. They're complaining about something again. Forgive their complaining. So he stops the fire from burning. And we go on down the thing, and they're complaining now. The children of Israel are complaining that all they have is this manna to eat. We're tired of eating this manna. I wish that we had never left Egypt. Oh, we had cucumbers and melons, and the fish was free, and we had leeks and garlic. Oh, I wish that we were in Egypt. And then there's a little space, and Elohim meets up with Moses and says, look, appoint yourself some elders to judge these people and make some decisions. And, it's cool. I'll split my spirit up amongst them all. And it was so good that some of these elders were actually in the camp prophesying and speaking the word of Elohim. And now here come the quail. And the quail come big time. They fall for like all around the camp and outside the camp. So many quail that they are 3 feet high. They don't even have to bend over to pick them up. And Elohim says, I'm going to give you quail. I'm going to give you so many quail that they're going to come out of your nostrils. Yeah. Okay? So the people are so busy, they're so excited they have meat to eat, and they're just picking it up, and they're just going at it, and tugging it away from their neighbor's hands, and they're fighting over the meat, and they're just going after it. What did they forget to do?
Thank you.
Thank God.
They forgot to say thank you.
We have savers.
They forgot to acknowledge that it was from Elohim.
Yeah.
It says that while the meat was still in their teeth, Elohim sent a plague. And if it had not been for Moses interceding, it would have wiped them out. What does meat in their teeth mean? Meat in their teeth. We have Proto-Hebrew pictograph of the shin is actually, could be that, or sometimes it's drawn like this, or upside down actually. It's drawn like that, which represents teeth. It represents a pressing. But when we look at shin, it also represents 2 points of view. Because in shin, we have shin, what we also have, the dot over here is sin. We have 2 points of view. We have the front side of Shem, which represents the things of Elohim, the things of God. Represents life. It represents freedom from bondage. It represents restoration, redemption. The other side of Shem, the back side of Shem, represents carnality, the flesh, the things of the Satan. It represents bondage. It represents death. We have a story in Brit Hadashah. Yeshua is saying, I'm going to be arrested. I'm going to suffer. I'm going to be put to death. And Peter comes and says, Master, what are you talking about? That's crazy. None of that stuff's going to happen. Put it out of your head. What does Yeshua say? Get behind me, Satan. What's he saying? He's saying, Peter, turn your shin around. You have to stop trying to look at things from your carnal point of view. Look at things from the point of view of Elohim. Okay? So, how do we apply this teeth, this meat in their teeth, while the meat was still in their teeth? That we get so distracted by our carnal pursuits. And this is the other side of it. The first one was about the Word. This is about our relationship, our very, very deep relationship. We get so distracted by our carnal pursuits. I have to get this done. I have to get that done. I want this. And this is important. And I'll take 2 of those. And, no extra cream. I'm on a diet. Anything but thinking about the fact that it is our Elohim that provides everything for us. The only time I have to think about God is on Sundays between these certain hours, or on Wednesday nights, or on Friday nights, or on Tuesday nights. I don't have to think about God during the rest of my life because all that God stuff belongs in church, right? The fact is that if we have a relationship with our Elohim, we're responsible for that relationship with our Elohim 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Okay? We have Yeshua. We have Mashiach. And if I believe that Mashiach dwells inside of me, then I am connected to Yehovah all the time. The Word says, I can do all things through Mashiach. It says through Christ, through Mashiach. But what does it mean if I say I can do all things through Mashiach that strengthens me? I can do all things through the anointing of Yehovah within me that gives me strength. Okay? And greater is He that is in me than he that is in the world. If Elohim is for me, who can be against me? So, when I keep these things in mind, am I putting other pursuits in front of my relationship? And that is what this is telling us specifically. Am I pressing Him out in order for my carnality, my flesh, to be satisfied in my life? And it's something that we have to keep in mind. It's not, here's the preachy part. I'm sorry if it sounds that way. Not really. It's not that difficult to sit down for an hour, 30 minutes, and go to the Word. And I tell people, I say, it's not about reading a chapter. You read a chapter, you forget what you've read by the time you get to the 3rd or 4th word. But take a verse and break the verse down. Yeah. Break it down. For the Hebrew people, take the word and break it down into the Hebrew letters. Take one Hebrew letter and break it down and think about it. We have Shin, we have Aleph, that I can say Aleph. I have 2 yods and a vav that equal 26. All the Hebrew letters have numerical values. 26 is the same numerical value as Yod He Vav He, the name Yehovah. Take the Hebrew letters and break them down. Get my relationship. I want my relationship to be on His level, in His language. Asher, right now, my son is going crazy because he wants to learn sign language. And he's just tearing it up, trying to figure out who can teach him sign language. He wants to master sign language. But we take that kind of zeal. I want to master my master's language. You know, we have Greek and Aramaic, and the controversy between which one was first, Aramaic or Greek, and the Brit Hadashah. Really, other than just a few verses, they're identical. 96%, 97%, 98% agree. There's 4 verses in Brit Hadashah that disagree. So, take time to study the Hebrew, take time to study the Greek. What does it mean? The only difference between Hebrew and Greek is that in Hebrew, this is going to be defined as a stick that writes, a utensil used for writing. In Greek, it's going to be described as a silver cylindrical object. Okay? Learn them both. Study both. You know, might get to Greek one of these days, but Greek comes from Hebrew. So it's not that much of a difference. Aramaic comes from Hebrew. Arabic comes from Aramaic. But take time to show gratitude. And I guess the final part of this particular segment is that Yeshua was talking to the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman. And he says, you don't understand what you worship. And then he made a comment in English that sounds kind of arrogant, but we're going to take a look at it. He says, because salvation is of the Jews. What does that mean? He says salvation is of the Yehudim. Okay? Or we can say, oh, it's because the Jews have Torah, and the Torah is actually called Yeshua in Old Testament writings. But Yehudim means, from Yudai, means to show gratitude. First of all, to show gratitude, Yudah means to show gratitude. And it also means to praise. So the first 2 prerequisites of a relationship with Yehovah Elohim is to be grateful. And it's to praise. People say, well, how do I praise at home? You know, I don't have a band that's up there, and I'm not going to stand up. You know what? Close the blinds so your neighbors don't think you're an idiot. And get up there and praise and worship. It's not hard to praise and worship at home on your own. You can praise. First 2 prerequisites. What are the other 2? He says, the Father is seeking those who will worship in spirit and in truth. Well, we have to worship in spirit, but we have to worship in truth. We can't worship in spirit unless we worship in truth. We have to know the truth, because the truth will do what?
Set us free.
Set us free. It will give us the liberty to worship in the spirit, and it will give us the liberty for our spirit, which is weak, to link to the spiritual aspect of the greatest entity in creation and existence and beyond. Okay? That's how we get our relationship. We show gratitude. We praise. We seek the truth, and we seek to worship in spirit. I didn't go into the other stops because we're going to pretty much knock the balance of the stops off next go around. I've actually worked them up, and we've got the stops and what they mean, and we're just going to go through them. But the next few stops along the way, we come to the next stop, which is Hetros, which is where Miriam and Aaron approach Moses about his wife. Says, you shouldn't be hanging out with that Ethiopian wife. Okay? And Elohim says, why are you talking to him like that? You have no business talking to the one that I speak mouth to mouth with like that. Miriam is struck with leprosy, and placed outside the camp for 7 days. Okay? Miriam, the name Miriam means rebellion. Okay? We have to understand from this while we're in the month of Elul, and that's why I'm going to just mention it briefly, is that if we rebel against the Word, if we go contrary to the Word, and we don't take the time to research it, and we don't take the time to make teshuvah and turn around, repent, whatever you want to call it, and get back on the right track, then we are just like as if we were leprous, and we shall be put outside the camp. Okay? We're going to be off the road. She was there for 7 days. 7 is important because 7 is another letter in the Zion that reminds us that we receive redemption, we receive restoration, and then redemption, because the camp didn't move until she was back in the camp. But we receive redemption and restoration through Zion is the 7th letter of the Aleph Beit. What happened on the 7th day? He rested. So it represents the rest of the It forms a sword. It represents the protection of Elohim, and the root of Zion is Zan, which means nourishment. So it's the nourishment of Elohim. And it's going to be the rest, nourishment, and the protection of Yehovah Elohim, who is Yeshua. We have another letter called the Vav. It's the 6th letter. It represents the flesh. It represents you and I. On the 6th day we were created. The Zion is called the crown Vav because it has these little crown nets. And it is a representation to us of the rest, nourishment, and protection that we receive in the salvation, redemption, and restoration of His Word, who was made flesh as His Son, who became our King to lead us out. So, in Miriam, in her deal with Moses, who is a representation of the Word, that when we rebel against the Word, we will be off track. But if we will stay focused on the Word, then His rest, His protection, and His nourishment will bring us back. The next stop means to yoke, that we get yoked back to our Elohim. And the stop after that means to be uplifted. And it also means to be redeemed. So we keep going on. And we see that as we make teshuvah, as we turn around, He's always there to carry us. Any questions on any of this mess?
What's a stop? What do you keep talking about stops?
The stops, we're studying Numbers 33. And the stops along the way. In Numbers 33, they left Ramses
So you're talking
out
about
of Egypt. We're talking about
the crowd actually stopped.
each
okay.
each individual place they went to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And there's 42 different places. They actually only camp 20 times. Do the math. I don't know how it works, but should, you know. But yeah, that's what we mean by the stops. We're studying each individual place. Anybody else? Okay. Well, I guess we've achieved grooviness then.